Hello everyone, happy Easter to everyone, even though it's a day late. I hope you had a wonderful Easter. Yesterday I know I did spend a lot of time with my family and of course going to Easter services and enjoying uplifting time on a great day. So this video is coming to you a day late, but I did get some progress done on the layout during Holy Week. As you can see, beginning work on the final stages of the layout. Almost have complete basic scenery. This section here is actually going to be pretty easy. Quick reminder though, I am still selling some OEM Soundtrax Tsunami 2 decoders for both GE and EMD. Check the description for the website if you're interested in some of these sound decoders. All right, here's how things looked at the beginning of the week. Again, this is the very last portion of the layout to get scenery, get basic scenery. This is Emory between Echo and Castle Rock. Now you notice I have a measuring tape here. I'm kind of planning on the backdrops, and it's almost exactly 16 feet. It is about 3 inches short of 16 feet. Now my backdrops come in 8-foot sections. I use 2-foot by 8-foot banners. And I want to just kind of go over a little bit on how I did these backdrops, and it's very similar to all the other backdrops. I use Google Earth to get some pretty good pictures. It's kind of a crapshoot as far as whether or not the pictures will be good or not. It depends on when the pictures were taken. Where the sun was and so forth, and then also the time of day and everything. But these actually came out pretty good, and I basically just try and go down the road and get a string of pictures. Now I had to kind of move down a little bit at times to get the vehicles out of the way, kind of catch a time. That truck got in there just at the last second, so I'm continuing down, and eventually, again, a van is in the way, but eventually you can get to a spot where there's no vehicles in the way. This was a time when it took quite a bit of effort, and I actually did not want it down quite this far, but it took me a while to get to a spot where there were not any vehicles. Now, some of the cars wouldn't have been that big of a problem. Here we go. I finally got a spot. And you can save these pictures on Google Earth. Now, this does not show any of the drop-down menus and so forth, but I basically took some pictures, and then I'm using GIMP here now to actually put the pictures together. I have this basic background picture that I've been using that has the same background for the sky. Now the land will eventually get covered up, and you notice I put a line there. That's where I'm going to cut it. Now here's some pictures that I've already kind of aligned together, and I'm kind of skipping through a bunch here. This is trying to not make this to be too long for a weekly update. I might do a more thorough explanation. Here I'm turning this one around so it will go on the top. And I'm going to just show you how I added some more for the bottom one. So when I do a 2-foot by 8-foot banner, you get 16 feet of background. So I have that first one done, and I put it on the top, and then I'm going to add some pictures. Again, I might do a more extended video that shows a little bit more. And notice on the lower right-hand corner is all the different pictures, and they're put there in layers. So I have a bunch of pictures there. You can only see the top one right now, but it's doesn't take too much to go through and decide where you want to put everything. So here I'm kind of aligning things. And one thing you have to be aware of is that the top one's going to match up with the bottom one. So you have to kind of do some measurements. This is 96 pixels, 9,600 pixels wide and 2,400 pixels high for a height. And so what that means is that you can actually do some pretty good measuring because it's 2 foot by 4 foot. 2 foot by 8 foot. So every 100 pixels is an inch. And so anyway, here you can see me just kind of moving them around. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're doing this is to try to have, when two pictures are being meshed together or aligned together, that you kind of pick pictures where there's not that much of a change. Now those two match up almost perfectly, and then these here also match up. So if you pick terrain that looks fairly similar, then you're going to get something that actually looks pretty good. The top one had some stark contrast because of the roads, but we'll take care of that later. Then once you get it all aligned, again, I'm skipping a bunch here, but once you get it all aligned, then notice how the skies are a little bit different for each picture. So then I go in and I remove the sky from each of the pictures. And once you remove, here I'm basically selecting a rectangle that's above the picture, and then I delete it. And once you delete the what you have selected, you have the background, the sky from the original background shows through. Here I'm trying to do some more removal of some rectangles. All right, once you get the rectangles removed, then you use a fuzzy select, and that'll basically select the colors that are similar, and then you can get it closely matched. So you remove the sky from the picture, and then the background sky shows through. And then this is basically, after removing all of it, then you just have the mountains and the original sky. And that works out really well because when you put these, one background up against the next background, you want the sky to be somewhat consistent from picture to picture. All right, then once you get the picture, then I go to Walgreens Photo. And you notice they have 60% off wall decor. That's awesome. And because you can get them for a lot less than what they would be normally. So I do the satin paper 2 by 8 foot, 2 foot by 8 foot. Now notice if you do adhesive or vinyl, it's way more expensive. So I just do the satin paper, which works out nicely. Sometimes they don't like to change the paper out, and you might pay for satin and get vinyl. But most time you get what you asked for. Now I uploaded the picture. And then here you can see that's once added to. This is all the other pictures I've been doing, all the other banners. All right, but that's the one I'm going to select. I think I just unselected it. All right, so I select it, and then you add it to the project. And that's it. It fits perfectly in the space for the 2 foot by 8 foot banner. You add it to your cart and proceed, or you add it to your project, then you go to your cart And it comes out as being $36.99, but if you put in the coupon code here, which in this case was new wall, then the price is only $14.80, which isn't too bad. And then with tax, see if this shows tax. They usually have same-day pickup, which works out pretty good. All right, once I had it printed out, then here it is at home on the floor. You can see the line that separates the two. The seams show up a lot more on the bottom one here than the top one. I had a hard time matching that up. Well, the one that I was showing you that I worked on matched up much better. These are all pictures taken between Echo and Castle Rock. So these are the actual mountains. This is with the actual backdrop of the UP line between Echo and Castle Rock, which is exactly what we're doing. Now, what's kind of interesting is that some of the rock is grayish and some of it's red. So I was kind of surprised that it kind of goes back and forth. Here you can see there's one of the seams between two pictures. You can kind of see it. It really, if you get it the same kind of terrain, it basically disappears. All right, here it is mounted on the backdrop. And I went ahead, and this road kind of shows on there, but it's going to be covered up by scenery here. I drew a line with a little marker to where I was going to have the scenery go up to. So most of the road's going to be covered up, which is what I kind of knew in advance. So I wasn't too worried about that showing up, and I wasn't too worried about the seams either. And then it's finally goes up and then matches up with the existing scenery. That's where I started the scenery, by the way. So we've gone all the way around the entire layout, top and bottom, upper level and bottom level. Now, before I added the cardboard webbing, I did not put in enough bracing for this road. This is just a 1/8 inch hardboard. And I only put bracing up in every 2 feet. So I added some here. You can see I have one added. I just clamped it down there. And then I put the cardboard webbing. This is the vertical pieces that I put in. A little bit gets messy, obviously, as you're working on this. And the first thing you might notice, that I want you to take a note of, is that I did get all the extra bracing in. So there's that one that I showed you to begin with. There's an existing one. So the bracing is now every foot. There's one that I added, and the existing one, and so on. And so you can see the road is nice and level. And I don't think it's going to warp. So I have all the vertical pieces in. Now, one thing that I try to do is make it look like the land was there first, and the railroad and road were put in there by the civil engineers. So because I have that, so here you have a little hill here. The idea is that the terrain initially went, from here to there, and the railroad and road, the civil engineers, when they laid it out, they came in there and dug out everything. So there's going to be this is very vertical right there, so there's going to be some rock faces right there, but that's going to be pretty much it. It gets a little bit more of a gentle slope, so there'll be just regular vegetation, grass and weeds and things like that. This is the Emory control point. and you can see it kind of gets more level, and then you have more, Castle Rock, and so it transitions again to a little more hills. Now this is a little bit of a concern here. Now that gives you a view of how it looks. I think it's going to look pretty cool with the road paralleling the track, which is exactly how it is on the prototype. And then it curves and crosses. Before I cover this up completely, I'm going to make sure everything works as far as the turnouts and the signals and everything. Don't want to mess with any wiring after it's covered. Now there is one problem area, which we'll show you here in just a little bit. And that is right here. There's like a hole there. And again, you want to think of this in a geological sense. From these hills here, the water will drain towards the culvert. But here, there's like a hole where if it rained, it would just stay in the hole. There'd be like a little lake. So I realized I'm going to have to level this out a little bit and not have this hole here, because it would not make any sense that the hole would form in the first place. Or if it was developed because of the railroad being put in there, it would have to take care of the drainage. So I realized I was going to have to cover that up a little bit better so that it's more level. You didn't have the hole. It just did not make sense in a geological sense. So I realized I was going to have to put some couple more things of cardboard. Now, here's where most of the water drains. I was thinking maybe I could have it so that all the water would drain here, and then there's gonna be a culvert there. I haven't put the culvert in yet, but we kind of engineered that back when we built this, that all the water from that rock face would come and go under the tracks there. I was thinking if I get this up high enough, maybe have it so that this also would drain to the right and then go through that same culvert. I also had to be concerned about this road here as well. Needed to put in the road portion that goes from the tracks to the fascia. So I had to take care of that also. And here is my attempt to level it out. I did get it leveled out. I think it definitely looks a lot more plausible now. But as I was surveying it, I was thinking, okay, that water that lands on this land here is not going to make it all the way over to that culvert that I already have. I was thinking, okay, there's going to be a low spot right here, and the water would bunch up in this area right here. So I decided I was going to also put in an additional culvert here that would be the drainage from the other side. And then here's where the road was going to come across the tracks at an angle. One thing when you're planning your layout, it's always good to put the tracks and roads and so forth at angles. This would not be near as interesting or realistic looking if the tracks and the road paralleled the fascia. So this is coming into the fascia and going across the tracks at an angle. And then the tracks themselves, as it goes from one end of the Emory to the other. Here I'm kind of trying to show the drainage here I had existing, and then the new drainage was going to go in here. And you notice I put in a culvert that's going to go right there. But again, it's always a good idea to put things at angles, so this hits the fascia at an angle, crosses the tracks at an angle. And then when you look down the line here, you'll see that the tracks do not parallel the fascia. So that's also at an angle. So it's always, when you're planning things out, if you can put some angles in there and not have things parallel all the time, definitely makes things a little bit more interesting. So this is how it looks. This week I'm going to cover it up with some rosin paper and hopefully get some plaster down. Not sure if I'll get to doing the rock work or the vegetation and so forth. So it's probably going to be a couple of weeks yet before I get this done. But then all the basic scenery will be complete. So I'm really, really excited on getting this all done so I can start moving on to weathering rolling stock and locomotives and so forth. But pretty happy with the way this looks at this point. And I think the backdrop looks good too. And it's a good transition from the Echo Canyon. Then you have some gray rocks, and then to the Castle Rock area, which has more of the reddish color rocks. I've got to see some trains going through. This is the Wholesome Cement area, the Weber River Canyon, coming across the Weber River. This is a stack train pulled by AC 4400 by scale trains. And then a Gevo, and I think that's a SD70 coming across. Yep, it is a SD70. Those two are by Athern, the Gevo and the SD70 by Athern. This is going through Echo Canyon now. And we come to the new scenery, the final scenery area. There's going to be trees, by the way, right there where the road goes into the scenery. So that seam and road that's on the backdrop will be hidden by trees. This is going to be a good scenic spot, I think, with trains coming in opposite directions. I think the backdrop's going to blend in pretty well. Not too bad. That's my wife, by the way, who came down while I was videoing. Oh. And we're kind of laughing at each other right now while I'm trying to finish this shot. This last locomotive is a Heritage unit, Southern Pacific. This is one of my favorite Heritage units. I don't know if they ever use Heritage units as DPUs. I don't know if the Heritage units are only used on special trains, or if they just mix them in whenever they need them. I mix them in whenever they're needed. So they're a lot of times on the head end, but not always. Here you can see the other train going through the Wholesome cement area. And this is coming in the other direction, another Heritage unit. This one is at the head end. These are by Athearn, by the way, both of the Heritage units. This is the CNW. We saw that in Rochelle a lot. And then that's another Athearn Gevo and a Scale Trains Gevo. I just switched it over to dynamic brakes so we get a chance of hearing the locomotives using their dynamic brakes going down the 1.7% grade with a loaded coal train. So that's a Athearn SD70 ACE Heritage unit, an Athearn Gevo, and then a Scale Trains Gevo. And then some Rapido auto flood cars, as well as some Intermountain bathtub gondolas. Coming on to the Castle Rock area. This is the first area that we worked on. Mark Bridgewater helped me with this area. That was in February of 2021. No, take that back. February of 2022. I think this looks pretty good with the culvert and the road here at the fascia. Once I get this area done, I will have the entire layout scenicked and ballasted. That's a pretty good accomplishment. I'm coming up on 4 years that I've been working on this. I started in September of 2021. So I'll definitely have all the basic scenery done by then. Hopefully I'll have a lot of the rolling stock and locomotives weathered by the time I hit the 4-year mark. Someone said I should do a golden scenery event somehow. I'm not sure how you do that, although I think what I might do between Devil's Slide and Echo, there is the 1,000-mile tree that's right near the tracks. And it's a tree that there actually was a 1,000-mile tree, but it died in like 1900. It was they put a sign on it in 1869 when they were doing the initial track lane. When they got to the 1,000-mile mark, there happened to be a tree right there at 1,000 miles, so they put a sign on it that it's the 1,000-mile tree. That was in 1869. The tree actually died around 1900 or so. But the Union Pacific planted a new tree. Not sure when they did that, but they planted a new tree at 1,000 miles, and then they put a little fence around it. So I'm going to include that on the layout. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you again next Sunday for another update. Take care, everyone.